all for taking, thank you, Sean. I'd like to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I greatly appreciate you setting aside time, not only in person, and thank you in partnership with Crafton Hills College for helping organize this today, but also virtually if you're joining us. My name is Sheree Nuez, and I am a training coordinator with the California Department of Veteran Affairs in the California Transition Assistance Program, or CalTAP. Today's hybrid webinar will cover general information and resources and eligibility in regards to the Veterans Readiness and Employment Overview, which is VR&E. So really quick, just to cover our housekeeping, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and your consent is required. Participation in the meeting will act as your acknowledgement for the recording. I'd also like to remind you that your camera and microphones are turned off. That is the maximized bandwidth for today's presentation. Running kind of behind the scenes for me is my fellow training coordinator and colleague, Sean Campbell. He will be utilizing the chat function to drop any resources and links or guides for you. In addition to that, we have a Q&A portion. For those of you that are not familiar with Zoom, at the very bottom of your screen, you should find the chat function. You can go ahead and click that so you can view any resources dropped in there. And then the Q&A function where you can pose questions or speak to any of us if you have any questions. I'd like to also recommend and ask that if you do have a specific question for yourself personally, to please not provide any self-identifying as far as personal information such as your social or any those kinds of information within the chat. It is a public forum, so we ask that you exercise caution within there. And if you experience any loss or internet connectivity, please rejoin the webinar and utilize the link that was provided in your email. So as I mentioned today, joining me virtually will be my colleague, Sean Campbell, who's already busy in the chat and also the Q&A. And also we have a VSOC counselor with us, Mara Kasdan. And then in person at Crafton Hills College, we have our local interagency network coordinator, Merlene Steinbeck. So thank you, Merlene, for joining us there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into how does CalVet help? And just go over some general California resources before we get into the VR&E portion. Essentially, CalVet, as you can see there, we are a state agency. However, we work multilaterally across different agencies. So on the federal level with the VA, locally with the county veteran service offices throughout California, and within the community utilizing our various service providers. Below, you can see just a few service providers that are our partners and that we've worked in the past with. So Swords to Plowshare, the American Legion, just some examples there. Essentially, while we are separate entities, we work jointly to advocate for you and connect you to your earned benefits. So a little bit more information about the VA and CalVet and how we are structured. So for many of you that do or do not know, the VA actually is comprised of three different administrations: the VHA, or the Veterans Health Administration, the VBA, or Veterans Benefits Administration, and the NCA, which is the National Cemetery Administration. So each, as you can see there, has three different buckets and the different resources and information that they provide there. As far as CalVet, we have a robust amount of different resources that we can provide with our various programming, CalTAP being one of them that myself and Sean are a part of. The California College Tuition Fee Waiver, that is a dependent benefit, but essentially any dependent of a veteran who is a 0 to 100% rated can attend any California community college, state, or UC school. We have a phenomenal home loans program. For those of you that are not familiar with it, our home loan program is a little bit different from the VA. The VA is a guarantee loan, whereas our home loan, we are actually your lender. We also provide a great home insurance policy for those that are seeking that as well. We also have 7 different veteran homes for long-term care. And they are comprised of different kinds of specialities that they can provide for you, whether that be memory care, assisted living, some of those examples there. And also to preserve your legacy, should you wish to be laid to rest in a state cemetery, we can provide that too. We also have CSA, the California State Approving Agency for Veterans. Essentially, that's a protection for you in regards to your education benefits utilized here in California to ensure what school you're going to is a legitimate one and your funding for your GI Bill is going to the appropriate place. And lastly, we have VBE and VHHB. So what exactly is CalTAP? I like to read this word for word, but essentially CalTAP, what we're a part of, is designed to inform, connect veterans of all areas to the earned federal and state benefits, as well as provide continued support and assistance as your needs change over time through 5 pathways. And I'm going to go ahead and expand that for your needs and also your loved one's needs. So whether that be your family member, your dependent, we help all of our veterans and their family members. So those 5 pathways include the core curriculum, education, employment, entrepreneurship, and also our service providers. So what does that exactly mean? Well, we have our journey map right here. And essentially what this means is from your joining of the military to your separation, to your time after and as you're transitioning, your post-military life, to even retirement aging, and ultimately when you are laid to rest, we are here to support you throughout that time. This is our California Veterans Resource Book. It's a great resource for everyone to have. This is a great tool to enlighten, educate, and empower you. For those of you in person, I believe Merlene has brought a few copies for you to have on hand. It's also on a QR code on your agendas. For those visiting us or joining us virtually, Sean has dropped in the chat a QR or a PDF copy of the Veterans Resource Book. But if you are also interested in obtaining a hard copy, you can definitely request that on our webpage, which is right here. And a quick overview on here, we have CalTAP, some little highlights here for you. We have our CalTAP webpage, that'll lead you to our landing page. We have find your local CVSO or your County Veterans Service Office. So wherever you are joining us, virtually in person, you can search for the one that is closest to you. And lastly, again, that Veterans Resource Book at the bottom there, you can download a PDF version online. So what exactly are California benefits? I kind of went over a little bit of them earlier, but essentially here are just a snapshot of the ones that are offered here within California. So as I mentioned, and one of the most popular is the California College Tuition Fee Waiver. Again, this is a dependent benefit. So it's for any dependent for a veteran. They can attend a California community college, UC, or state school at no cost. So should the veteran receive a 0 to 100% disability rating. For the California DMV, they offer a bunch of different benefits, such as the veteran designations on your license. So if you need to present that you are a veteran at any point in time, you have that already on your license, and you don't need to carry around your DD2 Form 14. You could be eligible for a motor vehicle registration fee waiver. And for those of you that enjoy the great outdoors, there are reduced fishing and hunting licenses that you could be eligible for, and also a no-cost state parks pass. And lastly, we have the disabled veteran property tax exemption. Now, this varies from county to county, so we like to encourage people, if you do have property, to visit your county assessor's office, as it is at the discretion of the county on your eligibility and application for that. I went over a little bit some of our divisions that comprise CalVet. As I mentioned, the CalVet Home Loan Department, they offer a great home loan program. And we also have the Women's Veterans Resources and also Minority Veterans Resources. Those are two separate divisions to offer great resources for women veterans and for our minority veterans. Each have different newsletters that you can subscribe to that will allow you to know when their upcoming events are, and any kind of networking events as well. I also mentioned the Veterans Homes of California. So if you're interested in exploring any of those, Sean has dropped those resources within our chat. And then lastly, our cemetery and burials. So not to really exhaust you with all that information in the overview so we can get to our guest speakers, this is just ways to keep in touch with us. Please provide your non-DoD email to CalTAP so we can stay connected. Register at MyCalVet so that you can receive notifications of webinars like this, whether it be hybrid, in person, or even online for you to attend. Our various social medias are located here with the various QR codes. We have several different our YouTube channel has several different pre-recorded presentations that we've already participated in that you can research there. Again, attend our webinars. And lastly, if you would be so kind to fill out our webinar survey, like with that QR code there, and I know Sean might drop it in the chat as well. For you, we appreciate your feedback. So you will not be spammed if you do provide our email, but this is just really a way for us to further develop our outreach so that we can provide our best resources and advocate for you and your loved ones. This right here is my contact information. Should you have any questions for me, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. Be happy to help you out and assist. But I am actually going to now turn it over to Merlene, who is going to be live in person over there at Crafton Hills College to talk a little bit about what she does as a local interagency network coordinator.
Thank you so much, Sheree, for that. Like Sheree said, thank you. I am the local interagency network coordinator for the Inland Empire. Those of you that are not in the Inland Empire, I'm going to show you a map of all of your links. You can take a look here, and my area is the big red area. I travel throughout this region, and I go to Inyo, Mono, San Bernardino, Riverside County. I go to bases, installations, community colleges, major universities, and I talk to, also I go to the VA, Loma Linda, quite frequently. I have meetings at all of the CBOCs, the vet centers, with the directors, all sorts of different people. Next slide, please. If you want to look at that map, or if you need more information about that, you can look on page 13 and get a hold of your link in that area. That said, in my area, I am your direct point of contact. I will give you my work cell phone number if you need it for the students here at the college. We do have several people here, and we're talking about what we do at CalVet and how we help out our veterans. Well, some of the best resources that we have are the links. And I say that not just because I am a link, but it's my favorite resource that you can go to somebody directly, right? And they can pick up the phone and say, hey, remember we had lunch last week? Oh gosh, I have a veteran right here. Can you help them? Can you get them a house? Can you get them a refrigerator? What can you do to help them? That kind of thing. So we work with the service members, the veterans and their families. So that's my direct point of contact. But also I make referrals and work with the established network. So that's going to be all of the CBOCs, the community outpatient clinics, the vet centers, the people at the hospital. I know the directors. I can call the chief of staff. I can call the director of VA Loma Linda. I can call people in the director's office at San Diego plus LA RO, so regional offices for the benefits. I know people. I meet with the directors at the counties all of the time. So the county veteran service office directors, I talk to them as well. I know people in the social work office. I know people in homeless services, and whatever services you need, I can help you with. We also assist with local emergencies. If you remember that in Crestline last year, the roofs collapsed from the amount of snow they got. That they sent me in a 4x4 truck up there so that I could help veterans on site. So yes, we provide leadership and advocacy to the local communities. I met with Secretary McDonough twice last year to talk about my district. I've met with the congressman. I've met with all of the VSOs, so the American Legion, DAVs. They all know me. They walk up and they're like, hey, is Mel with the, they call me Mel, but you could call me Merlene or Mel, whatever. Just don't call me late for dinner. Ha, just kidding. The thing is, they're like, hey, are you with the DAV guys? I'm like, yes, here's a picture. Like everybody knows me at this stage of the game. I've been here 6 years. I don't plan on going anywhere. I love helping veterans, and everybody in CalVet loves helping veterans. If you see a CalVet, sure, come talk to us. We will help you if we can. Next slide. So here are some of the benefits we can connect you to the employment. I know people at EDD, at Riverside and San Bernardino, that can help veteran-specific benefits. County Veteran Service Offices, CalVet, VA medical centers, vet centers, that kind of thing. They'll walk up and just come say, oh, there's CalVet. They know what's going on. They're in the know. They're on the planning committees. They're on the steering committees of the planning committees. All right, like the Vet Expo coming up in April. I've been on that planning committee since the inception, just the Beaumont one. I'm always on that. I'm always in the know, talking to everyone. Next slide, please. This is my contact info. That's my state cell phone. Feel free to text it or call it. If you call and I'm in a webinar, I'm not gonna probably answer, but if you text it, I will. So thank you so much, Sheree. I'm gonna go ahead and mute and send you back over to Sheree for now.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Marlene, for sharing all the information and the resources that you provide. We greatly appreciate it. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and invite Mara Kasdan on. We're going to have her go ahead and join us, and she's going to review the Veteran Readiness and Employment Services, Chapter 31. A quick reminder before I toss it over to Mara. Just friendly reminder to everyone, make sure that you have your chat function open, as Sean has been sharing some great resources in there for you. And we will, rest assured, get to the questions that you have in the Q&A. We greatly appreciate it. And also for those of you at Crafton Hills College, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. Merlene is there as a great resource to assist you with any of the questions that you might have. All right, without further ado, thank you, Mara.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mara Kasdan. I'm not sure if my video is on. I turned it on. Let's see.
It's on. We can see you and we can hear
Great.
you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So yes, my name is Mara Kasdan. I am a Vet Success on Campus counselor. I am out based at Mount San Antonio College and Citrus College. Just a second. Okay, there we go. And so I will be reviewing the Chapter 31 program today. Next slide, please. Now, veteran readiness and employment, formerly known as vocational rehabilitation and employment, it's still VR&E. The only thing that changed was the name. Everything else remains the same. Although there have been a few changes that I will review throughout the presentation. So the VR&E program is here to assist veterans who have service-connected disabilities that may limit his or her ability to work or prevents them from working. And maybe they can benefit from VR&E services such as training, job readiness, assistance with schooling if needed, and other aspects to assist. This program sometimes is referred as Chapter 31 or VR&E. Just a quick reminder, VR&E is not an education program. That is Chapter 33 or the old Montgomery GI Bill Chapter 30. You might hear sometimes, oh, veterans are in Chapter 31 and they're in training. And that is if it's required for employment, we can provide training for you. Next slide, please. Now, eligibility. How to apply to Chapter 31? You can do that through va.gov. eBenefits was the website that we used to have. It might still be open, but it will more than likely refer you to va.gov. To apply, you are eligible if you have at least a minimum of service-connected disability of 10% or more. That gets your foot in the door to apply to VR&E. If you have a 10% service-connected disability rating, it's important to note that for entitlement to Chapter 31, there needs to be two items identified. And I will review those as well throughout the presentation. It says here you would also need to have been found with a serious employment handicap. If you're 20% or more, with an employment handicap, you are entitled to VR&E services, and maybe the serious employment handicap applies. If it does, then you have both. If it doesn't apply, you would still be found entitled if there's an employment handicap identified, which I will also review in the presentation. There is 12 years to use VR&E, and those 12 years begin when you first received your VA disability rating. That's when the 12 years begin. But now VR&E is kind of mirroring the Forever GI Bill, where now if, for example, with the Forever GI Bill, if you were discharged after January 1st of 2013, you don't have 15 years to use your post 9/11 GI Bill. So now VR&E is mirroring it. Some veterans might not have a 12 years eligibility period. Okay, next slide, please. The application process, once you submit your application through va.gov, which is a 1900 form, I apologize, it has a B on there, but it's the 1900, you will be assigned a vocational rehabilitation counselor, a VRC. The VRC will contact you more than likely via email. We do use an automated system called EVA, where they will schedule a telecounseling appointment or an in-person appointment. A majority of the appointments are now held via telecounseling. They will also send you documentations to complete and return back to the VRC for your initial evaluation appointment. And that documentation will include a VR&E questionnaire that you include how do you expect the program to help you, have you used VR&E services before, um, employment background, military background, your service connected and non-service connected disabilities, are you currently in attending medical treatment, etc. They will also ask you to complete a career scope assessment that it helps to measure your interests and your aptitudes. And then at the end, it will give you a list of occupations that match. Also, you can provide your transcripts if you're currently attending school and a resume. It is important to return all those documents back to your counselor for your initial value appointment because they will be reviewing those documents that day. Next slide, please. Now, we do have 5 tracks with VR&E. The first track is reemployment, and that is the track if a veteran wants to return to a former employer where they worked before they went to active duty. Rapid access to employment, that is a track where the veteran already has the skills, maybe they completed a training program and they just need assistance to find employment. The other track that we have is self-employment. This one is if it's self-employment can be would probably be the only option for the veteran given their disabilities. There's also employment through long-term services. This is a track that most of our veterans are in, and this was the one that provides training. But remember, keyword is if it's required for employment. Okay. And then we also have independent living, and this track is if the veteran's disabilities are too severe that they cannot work at the present time. We evaluate what services can VR&E provide to the veteran for them to become more independent. And if are there any services that the VA hospital cannot provide that's needed, then maybe VR&E can provide. And then we reevaluate the veteran to see if they're now ready for employment. Next slide, please. Now, the entitlement process, once you receive your initial evaluation appointment, you return all the documents to your counselor. At the initial evaluation appointment, the counselor reviews if there's a vocational impairment, and that includes the effects of the service-connected disabilities, any deficiencies in education and training, any potential impacts of employers, negative perceptions about the veteran or service member's disabilities. Are there other pertinent factors resulting in restrictions and employability, such as lack of stable, continuing, and suitable employment? Now, for entitlement, the counselor, the VRC, reviews the effects of the service-connected disabilities. They do review non-service connected disabilities as well, but for entitlement, they can only look at the effects of the service connected disabilities in regards to employment. Yeah. Next slide, please. Now, employment handicap is defined as an impairment resulting in substantial part from a service-connected disability that impacts the veteran's ability to prepare, obtain, or maintain suitable employment that is consistent with their abilities, aptitudes, and interests. If there is an employment handicap, as I mentioned earlier, the veteran is entitled to Chapter 31. And with 10%, you need the employment handicap and the serious employment handicap. And the SEH includes are there significant impairments to employment? For example, there's been long periods of unemployment, frequent hospitalizations, um, long a police record, a history of substance abuse. So 10% needs both. 20% or more, they need the employment handicap because that's what's needed for entitlement to Chapter 31. Um, and sometimes a serious employment handicap applies and sometimes it doesn't. But at least with the employment handicap at 20% or more, they would be entitled. And I apologize. I believe I had this on the prior slides. Not all veterans are found entitled to VR&E because they may not need any services from us. And so when that happens, we do refer veterans, for example, with State Department of Rehab, they also provide vocational rehab services as long as there's a documented disability. The person is eligible and they assist people with disabilities to find employment. If training is needed, they can help with training as well. And as long as they have a documented disability, they're eligible. For VR&E, it's the effects of the service-connected disability. Okay. Now, the veteran does have 48 months of entitlement with Chapter 31. We add an additional 12 months from the 36 months that you would have with your GI Bill. But months that you have used under your education benefits, they are subtracted from Chapter 31. So for example, if you use your entire 36 months of your GI Bill, that would only leave 12 months left with VR&E. Okay. It's all case by case basis. The counselor, if needed, they can evaluate, oh, do they need more time? Is that something that we can provide? So it's all a case by case basis. But that is, if you have used your post 11 or your GI Bill time, it does subtract from Chapter 31. Okay? And as of April of 2021, a month's used under Chapter 31 no longer deduct from Chapter 33. So if a veteran, for example, a service member was just is no longer active duty, they were discharged. They have their full 36 months of their GI Bill, and they have a VA rating of 10% or more. They apply to Chapter 31, and let's say, for example, they're found entitled and they need training, and they would start fresh with 48 months with Chapter 31. And because now VR&E does not deduct from the GI Bill, VR&E, if needed, they can approve training, and those months that they use under VR&E would not deduct from the veteran's 36 months, right? So that's the difference now. Okay. Next slide, please. Now, once a veteran is found entitled, the next step is plan development. We do have different types of plan. One is an individualized written rehabilitation plan, which does include the training. It's a training component. And sometimes we do combine it with the individualized employment assistance plan. We also have an individualized extended evaluation plan and independent living plan. With the IEP, we do want to make sure that we address any concerns, and if we need to further evaluate a veteran's feasibility, this is a plan that we would more than likely develop an IEP to further evaluate the veteran's feasibility, address any concerns, and we always reevaluate at the end of the IEP. So it's more like a short term and just to further evaluate a veteran's readiness for employment. All plans include a vocational goal towards employment. As I mentioned, an IEP if we need to further evaluate feasibility, or if it's an independent living plan. The independent living plans is can include sometimes a veteran might need home modifications, right? If they need a ramp to get in and out of their home, etc. They also include objectives. Each objective is can vary, right? It's all a case by case basis of what the veteran needs. Do they need training? It will include the training that VR&E will provide. All plans require this objective is maintenance of physical and psychological health for veterans to maintain their health, attend any medical treatments that are recommended by your doctor, whether that's VA, hospital, or private doctor. We just want to make sure the veterans maintaining a level of stable health. And then also employment services. Again, the main goal for VR&E is to assist the veterans to obtain employment, suitable employment, and or a work assessment if we're further evaluating the veteran's feasibility, or IO services. Chapter 31 does provide 100% of tuition, fees, school supplies, and a monthly allowance. As you may know, Chapter 33, your post 11 GI Bill, the percentage that you receive is based on your active duty days. Some veterans may receive only 60%, some 80, some 100%. VRD, regardless of active duty time, we pay 100%. If the veteran has remaining time on their post 9/11 GI Bill and it hasn't expired, we can match the post 9/11 rates. As long as they have at least time remaining on their GI Bill and it hasn't expired. We do also cover parking. As you may know, GI Bill doesn't cover parking. VR&E does cover parking. Okay? If you're currently using your GI Bill and you apply to Chapter 31, and let's say you're found entitled in the approved training, but you're using your GI Bill, let's say for the spring semester, you can still proceed working with the counselor, developing a rehab plan, but you cannot officially start training with VR&E until you are no longer using your GI Bill. So then you would switch over to VR&E for summer or the fall semester, whichever semester you will be attending next. Okay. And as I mentioned, you can elect to receive the post 9/11 rates under Chapter 31, but you would make that selection on your rehab plan. There is an option where you select it. Okay. Next slide, please. Now, there is also called a retroactive induction. You may have heard of this, and this includes possible restoring entitlement with your Chapter 31. Or recuperating one day, on our system, for our system to match the post 9/11 rates. However, in order for the retroactive induction to apply, it has to be where VR&E continues the program the veteran was using under Chapter 33, and that they were service connected during the time that they were using their Chapter 33 program. VR&E the retroactive reduction can include reimbursement of, let's say, the GI Bill only sent you $500 for books and supplies, but your books were $700 that semester. VR&E can reimburse the difference, the $200, but you need to have receipts, copies of syllabus listing that those books were required for the program. If you paid for parking during those semesters that the retroactive induction applies, you need the receipts and provide that to your counselor for them to determine if we can reimburse the difference. As well as you may know, the BAH rate changes every year. Chapter 33 pays a new rate effective August. They use the academic calendar. VR&E starts paying the new BAH rate effective January. They go based on the yearly calendar. So veterans using VR&E for the winter, spring, and summer They are already receiving the new BAH rate for this year. Post 9/11 won't start seeing the rate until August for the fall semester. Um, I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anything. Also, they can reimburse. For example, if you use your GI Bill for winter, spring, and summer, and those apply for the retro, they can pay the difference from the new BAH rate. So that could be a couple $100, few $100 difference. Okay. Um, Really important, the VRC will send you documentations. For you to request a retroactive induction, there's a checklist. If you're requesting reimbursement of books and supplies, parking, there's a checklist, and then you return that to your counselor. Okay. Next slide, please. Now, what does the VRC do? They will be providing you case management. You will have your counselor working with you throughout your entire program. If training is approved, they will provide authorizations to the school. They're seeing the degree that they approved you for, as well as the time frame that the authorization is valid for. It includes also tuition, fees, and parking. Some schools require a separate authorization for books and supplies. We don't send a direct deposit like the GI Bill does. We use an authorization each semester. You want to make sure you have the authorization code, the number, and then you go to the bookstore. I'm using chapter 31. Here's my authorization. They confirm they have it, and then you go get your books, required books, and basic school supplies. And then the bookstore, they ring you up and they bill chapter 31. You do not pay out of pocket. Okay. Um, Also, you will be required to provide grades at the end of each semester. It is listed on your rehab plan, and also another document that you sign, which lists the veterans' responsibilities and the counselors, and it does list on there to provide your grades at the end of each term. It is required. We want to see how you're doing in school. Okay. Maintain in contact with your counselor. You cannot make any changes to your rehab plan without your counselor's approval. Um, because if it's not approved, then you would be responsible for those classes. So always maintain in contact with your counselor. Your counselor will inform you if you're meeting with them monthly, quarterly, or yearly. Yearly, for sure, we have to meet with you face to face once a year. But sometimes I tell my veterans, I need to hear from you at least every semester. Mara, here are my grades. Mara, if let's for example, if you're having difficulties with your classes, let your counselor know. Um, and really important to note, VR&E, if training is approved for the veteran, they train only up to the point where you're employable to enter that field. So the field, if it only requires a bachelor's, that's up to what they're going to training for, just the bachelor's degree. And making sure that the vocational goal matches your interests, your aptitude, does not worsen your disabilities, and has a good labor market. So those are key components to make sure that the goal does not aggravate your disabilities. Okay. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, submit your grades at the end of each term. School supplies. What is required of your program, that's required of all students in your program, VR&E can provide that as long as there's documentation. For example, engineers might require different software. You can let your counselor know. For example, Mara, I need this specific software for my class. Okay, provide me the syllabus. It has to be listed as required, not recommended items, required of all students in the class. And then the counselor might ask, oh, is it available to purchase at the bookstore? And if it is, then they can submit an authorization for you to purchase at the bookstore, or we can purchase it and then it's sent to you. Last option is for veterans to pay out of pocket, but sometimes it can be the fastest way. But you need approval from your counselor first. Once your counselor approves for a direct reimbursement, then you can purchase it. But get approval first from your counselor, because if you pay for it and then you ask for approval, it's not guaranteed they can approve it and then they can reimburse you for it. Okay. We can also provide computers if needed and required. Again, documentation would be needed if a veteran needs a higher end computer, for example, engineers, computer science majors. We just need documentation as to why you need the higher end computer. Okay. Next slide, please. And the goal for VR&E is to help you find suitable employment. Once you complete your program, you need to provide proof of program completion, and that can be either a copy of your degree or a copy of your transcripts. Unofficial transcripts would be okay as long as it lists your degree award date. The counselor declares your job ready. They refer you to work with an EDD representative that specifically helps you find employment. Resume development, interviewing skills. We also have employment coordinators and they have a job club once a month. And for your active participation in looking for employment, the counselor can approve an employment adjustment allowance that's paid after the first 30 days of you looking for employment and submitting a job like to your counselor. The EDD rep sends a monthly report to your counselor. They can approve that first EAA payment. For your next 30 days, total of 60, you're still looking for employment, you're showing that you're looking for employment, they can approve a second EAA payment. And those EAA payments can be equivalent to as if you were going to school, the same amount. So if you're receiving the post 9/11 rates, then those EAA payments would be the post 9/11 rates for the school that you last attended. Okay. If you find a job, let your counselor know. Provide your employer contact information, your start date. They will monitor your employment for 60 days. They will contact you the first 30 days. How's your job going? Everything's going well. I will call you the next 30 days. How's your job going? If there's any difficulties, have you requested accommodations? We work with your counselor. If everything's good to go, then we can successfully rehab you, and that's good to go. And it also shows that our program is helping veterans train for suitable employment, and we can help more veterans as well. Next slide, please. Oh, okay, one more back. Oh, never mind. Sorry. Thank you, Sean. Just real quick though, and I apologize, I forgot to mention it on the employment services part. We also do have non-paid work experience, which is like an internship where you can train with an employer, but it has to be at a federal location. It could be with the VA, IRS, Social Security, U.S. Forestry, EEOC, and it helps you gain work experience. It should be within what you were approved for or closely related to your goal. And we would pay you a monthly allowance for training for the internship. We call it non-paid work experience. The goal is to hopefully the employer hires a veteran or help the veteran gain work experience in their field. You can network within the site and apply for jobs that are within the company and so forth. Okay. This is my direct email. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me or call me. It is my direct office phone number. Um, and just real quick, as a Vet Success on Campus counselor, I do provide Chapter 36 services, which is personalized career planning and guidance. If you are interested in learning more about Chapter 36, please contact me. It's like the title states, if you need career counseling and guidance, you can apply to Chapter 36. Email me. I will send you further information about Chapter 36. It's a one-time appointment. I do thoroughly review the goal that you want to pursue. I review your disabilities. And it would kind of help. So when you do apply to Chapter 31, you've already have done some of the research on your goal. So if you are found entitled to Chapter 31, I tell my veterans, let the counselor know that you met with me for Chapter 36. And hopefully it helps to with the development of a rehab plan, because I do tell my veterans if the goal is suitable or not, because I'm also a voc rehab counselor. And I do tell them, oh yes, this would be suitable, this would not be suitable. We look at the labor market, we look at what training you need to enter that field, etc. I thoroughly also review the Chapter 31 program, provide information about other VA benefits that you may or may not be aware of. So that's it for me. Thank you. And send it back to Sheree.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mara, for your time today and your presentation. I know a lot of us are walking away with a lot more knowledge about VR&E, the eligibility, and the application process, more importantly. Really quick, before we get to the Q&A portion, we want to just quickly plug our upcoming virtual workshops. For anybody out there, on the 22nd, so tomorrow, we have a Veterans College financial planning. So financial planning for a veteran and approaching college and what that looks like. And then we also have an education benefits overview at the end of the month. That will be actually featuring the MAP program, or the Military Articulation Program is what it was formerly known as. But basically utilizing any kind of prior military service and learning during your service time, and how that can apply to education credit. We do have specialists from the MAP program joining us, so I highly encourage you to sign up for that as well. And then this is our contact page with all the presenters that have joined us today. And thank you all for joining us, presenters and also attendees alike, in person and online. At this time, we will be taking any questions for the Q&A. Before we go to our online questions, which I've seen quite a bit of traffic on there, thank you to Sean running the behind the scenes for answering some of the questions, and we've reserved some at this time as well. But Marlene, do we have any questions in person from Crafton Hills at this time?
I am asking them. Is there anybody here who have questions that want to ask Sheree?
Or Mara? Mara's
Or
still
Mara.
online.
Or Sean? I'm not seeing any at this time. Thank you, Sheree.
All right. If anybody feels compelled on your end, Marlene, just go ahead and let me know, and we'll kick it back to you. But I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my colleague Sean Campbell, who's been working the behind the scenes with the Q&A in the chat for questions that we have.
Thank you so much, Sheree and Mara, and thank you, Marlene, and of course, Stephen. It's good to have everybody here. We've been getting some pretty good questions, so let me try to get these out here as best I can. So one of the questions that was asked is about receiving Chapter 31 benefits to cover for schooling and training to save Chapter 33 benefits for usage on other educational goals in the future. How does that work out, Maura?
So I guess if you are not, as you know, if you're not using your GI Bill time, that those months will stay there. And if you are found entitled to Chapter 31 and the approved training for you, Chapter 31, those months no longer deduct from your GI Bill time. So whatever you have on your GI Bill now, if you're not using it, that's what you would have if you use time with Chapter 31. Hope that helped answer the question.
Thank you. So the next question coming up is about spouses and significant others. With 100% service connection, is the spouse able to apply for the Chapter 31 program?
Chapter 31 is specifically for the veteran with the service-connected disability. There is a education benefit for spouse and dependent, and that's Chapter 35. If a veteran is 100% permanent in total, their spouse and dependents can apply to Chapter 35.
Excellent. So the next question coming up is about timelines and processing the applications for Chapter 31. What is the average application processing time?
Yes, it can vary. It can vary between 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. If you did apply to Chapter 31, and it's been some time, like a couple months, a few months, please feel free to email me, and I can see where your application is at.
And what's a good way for people to follow up on the applications that they've submitted online?
They can always call our GI Bill. I'm sorry, not our GI Bill, our regional office. I apologize. And let me see if I can add that to the chat. Um, it's a Los Angeles regional office. And I'll include that on the chat. And there's also a web link. It's called Vera, and you can actually schedule a virtual appointment um, for any questions you have about, like, for example, compensation, VR&E. I'll include that also in the chat. It's a virtual or an in-person appointment.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And there was a question about the EDD representative. You referenced an EDD representative. Is there one that you would recommend, or is there a number or special link or email address that you would recommend the veterans try to use first?
Yeah, so I would contact the counselor directly for Chapter 31, the assigned counselor, because they're the ones that refer the veteran to EDD. Mm-hmm.
So the next question we have is about a master's degree program. Is a master's degree program something that is falls under Chapter 31?
It would all depend. It's all a case by case basis. If that's something the counselor will evaluate, if that's required for the veteran. So that is something that the veteran would speak to their counselor. As I mentioned, the goal is what needs to be approved first. I tell my veterans, it's kind of the opposite. Like, for example, when a veteran uses their post 11 GI Bill, most of the time they select a major and that's what they pursue and for employment. With VR&E, we look at what's your goal first, your employment goal, right? Making sure it matches your interests, your aptitudes, is not worsening your disabilities, has a good labor market, and what do you need in terms of training, the degree to obtain that employment. So that's what we look at.
Excellent. The next question
Mhm.
coming up is about employment adjustment allowances. And if someone hasn't been uh, declared job ready and they're not receiving them, what's the best course of action to follow up on that?
So to be declared job ready, if the veteran is in our program, is they have to provide proof of program completion to the counselor. That's either a copy of your degree or your transcripts listing that your degree has been awarded to you, the date, and also provide them the resume. And then the counselor confirms it that they've graduated, and then they declare the veteran job ready. And I believe there was also a question. I'm sorry, I'm jumping a little ahead of about the EAA payments. Those do not start until you complete the first 30 days in job ready status, and that you submitted a job log to your counselor showing that you are actively looking for employment. Then, after your first 30 days, the counselor approves the EAA payment. And then your second one is the next 30 days. So, after those 30 days, and you are submitting your job log, you're working with the EDD representative, then your counselor approves your second EAA payment. And there's only two after you graduate.
I'm seeing some excellent questions about job club employment coordinator and when people are hitting some obstacles as far as like finishing their degree and landing a job. What are your recommendations, and what are your thoughts on those topics?
I would always contact the counselor if they're having any difficulties with finding employment. Let your counselor know. Um, Work with the EDD rep. If that's not working out, let your counselor know as well. Our employment coordinators, they do have a job club once a month, and that sometimes can include applying for federal jobs. And let your counselor always keep in contact with your counselor, so that you can work any issues that you're encountering and looking for employment.
Thank you so much for answering that question.
Mhm.
We're getting a lot of really good questions coming in. Let's see. If someone applied for VR&E in December, but they haven't heard back yet, and their GI Bill is expiring in March of this year, what's some advice that you could give them?
Um, I'm thinking that's a really good question, because in order for the retroactive induction to apply, the veteran has to be found entitled to Chapter 31. If the veteran is still waiting to hear from the for their first initial evaluation appointment, it's up to the veteran if they want to conserve their GI Bill and not use it. Um, so that way, at least they have some time remaining on their post 9/11 GI Bill, and VR&E, if they're entitled and they approve training, and they can match the post 9/11 rates because they have at least a few days on their GI Bill. If they exhaust it, it's not always guaranteed that retro induction will apply. That's why I always recommend at least leave a few days on your GI Bill. So that's a decision the veteran will have to make. Do I use my GI Bill time, or do I conserve it and see if I'm approved for VR&E?
If someone feels as though they're running into a struggle with their VR&E counselor, or they're looking for certain locations for counselors, is there like a general phone number that they can call, or should they just
Yes,
contact?
I included the regional office number for Los Angeles in the chat, and there's also the Vera link. They can always contact, schedule a virtual appointment, and the counselor of the day, which is a voc rehab counselor, will call them back for that scheduled time. But you can also contact me via email, and I will try to help as best as I can. Either helping bridge that communication, reaching out to the counselor, yeah, via email or phone, they can reach to me as well.
Well, I would like to take this moment to thank everybody for joining us today, and to thank everyone for their service. And I want to turn it back over to Cherie, because it looks like we're running out of time, and I want to make sure to give it back to the presenter. So thank you so much for answering those questions, Maura. Thank you, Merlene. Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Sean, for facilitating the Q&A portion. Again, I greatly appreciate everyone attending, whether it be in person or virtually today. I know that we have a few unanswered questions there, but if you'd like to have a response on that, please provide your email address, so we'd be happy to follow up with you, or connect the questions with Mara, should there be additional information to be provided or requested. Again, we greatly appreciate your service and also your attendance today. Again, this recording will be provided later on our YouTube, so it should be uploaded in probably about a week or two. But we greatly appreciate your time and your attendance today.
Jerry, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Mara. Thank you for allowing the students here to see all of this great information, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all.